I suck at Jiu-Jitsu. How do I suck less at Jiu-Jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to the newest episode of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. And today we are going to be bashing our favorite person in the world to bash, and that is you. I usually like to keep the big reveal on these episodes, saving them till the very end. But I decided today we were actually going to give the big reveal right up front for you guys. And the big reveal is this: your greatest enemy is you. You are the problem. When we, at least you're doing a podcast on how to help you get better at jiu-jitsu and all the things that are in your way. Now, we're probably going to take this from a little bit different perspective today. We're probably going to look at the fact that if you are the problem for you, Josh is probably the problem for Josh. We can even say evil Josh, nefarious Josh, diabolical Josh is the problem for Josh. And so that is going to start us off on our first point today. I really think today's episode is going to help so many people realize why you are stuck in the same cycles of, especially in your jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to try to give too much life advice, but this does apply to life. But you will realize probably why you were stuck in the same cycle of injury, of not progressing, of losing in competition, of getting injured before competition, of competing sick all the time. There's all of these things that happen, and they're very, very predictable once they've happened to us before. And this episode is going to be about predicting those bad things and preventing them. And the only way that we can really do that is to accept that those hurdles that are put in our way 99% of the time are because of us. We are the ones who put those hurdles in the way. And so the first point that I have today is from a poet, rest in peace, and it is know yourself, know your worth. And that poet is Drake. I'm not totally sure that Drake died. I have some young students in my gym, and they were telling me something about how Drake's dead, he got bodied or something by Kendrick Lamar. And to be fair, that's like 2 of the 5 rappers whose names that I know. And so, it seemed interesting to me. I don't really know what happened. There was definitely some other people. There was a different age group talking back that were like, oh no, Drake won. I don't really know what happened, but I know something good happened. As soon as it turns into a jiu-jitsu match between the 2 guys, I'm in. I will learn the backstory. But until then, I'm not really sure. But I do know that 2010 Drake had a great quote, and it was, know yourself, know your worth. And so few people actually know themselves. What I mean is, and it's very hard to recognize that in yourself, but it's very easy to recognize it in other people. We all have that friend, or more than likely that friend's significant other, or that friend's cousin, or that friend's brother or sister, or somebody that maybe it's a family member of ours, but somebody that we have to see, but maybe we don't want to see. And the reason is because they are somebody who complains about certain things happening. Let's say for a lot of us jiu-jitsu guys, this is the feel. You go to Thanksgiving dinner and whatever your 17th cousin twice removed is way, way overweight, way unhealthy, and is having all kinds of health problems. And then is feeding you this, woe is me, there's nothing I can do about this, I have so many health problems, and I would never be able to exercise because I have so many health problems. And we know, Like, no, you need to exercise so you will have less health problems. The fact that you didn't do it up till now, the fact that you are overweight now is why you have these problems. And it's really easy for us to see that in, whoever that person is. Or, you see somebody who they can't pay their bills, and then you see how they spend money. Or they can't pay their bills, and you see, like, you go, man, they could work, or they could work more, they could work something different. And it's really easy to see that in other people. But it is so hard for us to realize that this weakness that we have, and a lot of times this weakness is causing us to repetitively make mistakes over again that are ruining our lives. And so I don't think that let's identify our weaknesses and where we all suck and where we all struggle is actually the best place to go. Because let's bring this back to jiu-jitsu. Let's say we are going to list your weaknesses, and let's say you are a white belt. Well, technically it's everything. And then if I just, if I go with a black belt, then it's everything times 10. I find out more things that I'm weak at. And when you look at your training and you look at like how you want to get good, it generally isn't, I have all these weaknesses, which one should I fill? Yes, sometimes it is that way because you are defending 100% of the time, but 80% of that time is spent in bottom side control. And so it's a really easy way to say, okay, this is a weakness that I need to work on. But most of the time, that is not the case. Most of the time, we teach jiu-jitsu and it's forward, right? It's here are 3 steps to get you past the guard to side control. Here are 3 steps to get you from side control to mount. And then here are 3 steps to let you finish this person from mount. And it's always kind of forward. And so we really are in jiu-jitsu trying to work our strengths. And the reason is because our weaknesses are almost infinite. And so only focusing from that direction of like, oh, I should always be working this weakness, all it's going to do is you're going to find the next weakness and the next weakness. But if you don't practice winning, if you don't practice offense, you will never get good at winning and you will never get good at offense. And so one of the best things that you can do is identify, like, if I was to get to a good finishing position, what is that? Where do I hit submissions the, 1 or 2 times a week that I hit a submission? Oh, it's from somebody's back. So maybe my next focus to work on my strengths would be to get there more. Maybe it would be to focus on back takes for a while. Maybe it would be to focus on back takes for 6 months. Maybe it would be to sign up for the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Pro and get the brand new Master Any Position in 6 Weeks course, the first ever premium I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show podcast that we have ever released. It is 8-9 episodes, and we're going to be adding to it. But it is just on how you can take that idea of I have a strength or I have a weakness that I need to fix, and you can spend the name of it is 6 weeks because that's the bare minimum. But ideally, you can use this over 6 months and really get good at that strength, really get good at your back takes. And those ideas are actually in the course on how to identify, okay, if you're here 80% of the time, it doesn't matter what this position is, that is the position you need to be working on, because we're just going to look at you getting reps. We're going to look at you. We're saying we're there. We need to get better. We need to kind of gain some strength from there. And so I would also add to this, the hardest mistakes for us to notice, like if you are eating no sugar and then you like eat ice cream one day, it's very easy to go like, yeah, that was a huge mistake. You wake up the next morning, you feel sick, and that is a very easy mistake to notice. The hardest mistakes to notice in ourselves are the ones that we make daily or the ones that we make in our routine. And so when it comes to jiu-jitsu, this is like the biggest mistake we talk about in jiu-jitsu all the time on the show is overtraining, right? If you are not balancing your volume and your intensity, the amount that you train and how hard that you train, we talk about the priority of consistency. Like that should be how you define your training schedule. How hard can I go? How often can I go to stay healthy and stay on the mats? And the interesting thing that happens for so many people happens for me still, and I catch myself doing it. And I've gotten better at it not doing it, but it's still like I catch myself doing it. When you go into train and your body is kind of beat up, you make a note of that and you go, okay, well, maybe I will train at 20% right now. And you do that and you go, okay, that didn't kill my body. I actually recover a little bit a couple days later on my next training session. I was able to go a little harder. And that to me is balance, focusing on consistency. You're able to hit those training sessions. But most of the time you're beat up and you go, okay, I can do 20%. And maybe you were even successful with that, but then you wake up kind of feeling better the next day. You go, you know what? There's class today. It's Saturday. I'll just go. I wasn't planning on it. And like, oh, it's a big crew. Let's just train live. And you train really, really hard with everybody. A lot of times you will start to hit the point of diminishing returns. You'll start to say, hey, I felt good and I felt myself getting better at jiu-jitsu these 3 days a week. So then 6 days a week would double my progression, right? And when you do it like that, a lot of times you change the goal from getting good at jiu-jitsu and you change the goal to showing up 6 times a week, which isn't bad. If you really understand how to get good at jiu-jitsu, 6 times a week will probably be very beneficial for you. But for most of us, especially people that are natural, but even people that aren't natural, training hard those 6 days a week is very, very hard on your body. And like I said, the mistakes that we make daily, you do this for 2 years even, and you're like, Josh doesn't know what he's talking about. I've done this for 16. So I've seen a lot of people do jiu-jitsu for long periods of time. And at the 5-year mark, a lot of guys that have really bad training habits, their body just starts to crumble. Sometimes it's earlier. But like at the 5-year of jiu-jitsu training, or even 3 to 5 year, people that have really bad habits, they start to really show. And you can push through those. And then you make it to 8, you make it to 10 years. When those guys start to make it to black belt, it's really sad because you notice like they had this point where they not only stopped getting good, but a lot of times they started getting worse. And not just like a physicality thing. It's just the fact that their body is just so beat up. And look, every gym, if you've been around long enough, every gym should have a few people that warn you all about this. My gym has people that warn the guys about it. Like, hey, your body can only handle so much. And so making sure that you are training in a way that allows you to keep training is how you avoid that, how you avoid this chance of injury, how you avoid, and it's really just, you don't want to waste your time on the mat. Like you want to use this time to get better. That's why you're there. And so just really being conscious of that point of diminishing returns, and then also being conscious that you can show up 6 times a week, but you don't have to train hard and you can get better all 6 times. You just have that focus. It is just, you have to decide that you are going to focus on something. I always say you're going to focus on something for a period of time, but at least each night you're going to have a focus. When we talked to Mark Vives, he was talking for competition. He explained this idea, and this is something that we hadn't talked about, but something that I had been doing. And maybe, so somewhere I must have stolen it from him. But it was this idea of taking 1 day a week to work defense, and then 1 day a week to work offense, and then 1 day a week maybe to work stand-up, and doing this as his routine, or to just do live rounds to work performance, right? And this was his routine of like, yeah, and if I do it these days, I get to kind of rest my need to do offense, right? Playing defense, as you get better at jiu-jitsu, and you get more efficient, you can play defense for a whole day and it not kill your body, and you still end up in a lot of good positions because you're so good at defense. And so, I would say that is like a simple explanation. That's like a really simple way of like, yeah, this guy took his obsessiveness in jiu-jitsu and combined it with a training schedule that would keep him healthy, right? And that's why he is, master 4 and still going out and competing. I hope he's master 4. Yeah, I think he's master 4. But still going out and competing, still going out and winning open classes as a small guy, but being able to do that without hurting yourself, and being able to do that consistently. That shows a really good routine. That shows a really good schedule. And to me, that shows a schedule focused on that point of diminishing returns, just knowing where that is and saying, okay, I can't do more. And so this is the second point. And these, as we always do, we're going to kind of melt these together. But I think it'll make this make more sense. Oftentimes, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. I remember hearing about that on an episode of Tim Ferriss. I don't know who he's talking to, but they were talking about this idea of most of the time, the same thing that makes somebody like Elon Musk, a amazing inventor and amazing with numbers and amazing with all these other things, but maybe that same thing makes it hard for him to have a relationship with people. And you watch the video. There's an old interview with Elon Musk where he is being asked about his failed marriages, and you can just see how upset he is that those things happened. And it's like this, yeah, but I know how to prevent, all these things when it comes to electric vehicles, but I just didn't know how to prevent this when it came to relationship, right? And so often, and you can see this, it's easier to see in high performers, but it's easy to see in jiu-jitsu. There's becoming this joke in the jiu-jitsu space. Craig Jones was like the first person to really push it, but I think you've always kind of heard this and recognized this. A lot of the best jiu-jitsu guys, especially Americans, they have Asperger's, they have some form of autism. And it is because that same fixation helps jiu-jitsu so much. These are the guys that can drill for a full day. And I'm always talking to you guys about trying to spend as little time on the mat to get good as quickly as possible. And those guys took their greatest strength and said, hey, I don't need to do that because my greatest strength is the fact that it doesn't bore me to spend 8 hours on the mat and, learn jiu-jitsu this way. This is what interests me. And so when you see that, you see like a lot of people really what some people, you could say it the other way, like what people would look at as their greatest weakness, they found something that it's strong in. And these guys are able to build huge careers out of jiu-jitsu this way. And there are all kinds of different examples of this. We see so many great leaders, and they are naturally great leaders, and maybe they're around great people too. But we see so many great leaders fall because they were such good leaders that they could get people to do whatever they say. Whatever came out of their mouth, they could convince all kinds of people to do it. But then they convinced all kinds of people to do the wrong thing, right? Usually for their own gain. And, weird thing about like any type of culty thing, and this is a total observational thing, as is everything the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. They may always start in different places. They may start with physical abuse, with like super, just weird practices, weird control stuff. But for whatever reason, and this isn't just a jiu-jitsu thing, you can look at religion, you can look at cults. They always start somewhere weird, but they always end up in the same place. It's always, I am the leader, you need to have sex with me. That's always what it is. You always see that. It's a really, really easy identifier of a cult, right? And again, this is my observation. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I know nothing. I live in the middle of nowhere in Illinois. What am I even observing? But it really seems to be that anytime I've gotten a culty vibe from somebody over the years of life, and that's something that's probably my greatest strength, is my ability to see people's characteristics. I don't even want to say read people, because there are a lot of things I don't notice about people, but I really do see people's strengths very well. But I just notice things. And it's a lot of what you guys like about the podcast is that I've been on the mats for a long time, and I've observed a lot of things over and over, and I'm good at saying, hey, a lot of good guys do that. Maybe I should do that. And that is, something I've observed is there are people that have phenomenal leadership qualities. I remember as a kid, there was a church that we went to. Same thing. It was like, it started weird. My dad noticed it too, that it was weird, and it always ends up at the same place. It always does. And so, random little note on the podcast, if you want to know if your gym is a cult, I don't know where it starts, but it's going to end up, you're going to hear something. It's going to be that. But anyway, let's look at the other things. Let's look at back to Josh and what I do really bad. And this is a really simple thing that I can notice in myself now, but it's still hard for me to stop, because it is my greatest strength. One of my greatest strengths is that obsession, is that focus for a very, very long period of time of something. But there are a few ways that it can be a weakness. One, if I focus on something obsessively and work at it obsessively day in and day out, I will get to a point of physical or mental just complete depletion. I'll get sick, or mentally I will not be me. And it is, I honestly, though, I observed it in myself growing up, but didn't really think about it. I noticed it in video games. I noticed it like, man, if I let myself, I can almost force myself into depression by playing video games for a long time. I didn't even know what depression was, but I just knew like I can make myself really sad by playing Mario for a week straight with no break. That's crazy. And, as I grew up, I did this with work. And it was when my wife started to point it out, like, hey, we need to stop these weeks where I don't see you, and then the next week you are just struggling. And it was this like, that does happen, doesn't it? I am doing that. I didn't even know. And it was just me using the same thing that has honestly helped me finish so many projects, helped me really get good at jiu-jitsu, doing these deep dives on positions and these deep dives on ideas and these deep dives on training methods and how people learn jiu-jitsu, and doing them over years of time, being able to be obsessed with them for years of time. And I know you guys are playing in your mind like, yeah, maybe we should send some of these episodes to like some type of psychological analyst and we can see what's wrong with Josh. You don't need to do that. You shouldn't do that. Don't do that. But that strength, that same thing that has helped me, has also hurt me. So many guys that have great cardio or are really tough, they do this in the mats. They show up every day. They push themselves every day. They fight every day. and then their body breaks down, right? And we've talked about over and over the last few weeks, but I'm going to say it again. This is why injuries are so important to try to avoid in jiu-jitsu, because consistency is a habit. And so as you are consistently hitting your schedule of jiu-jitsu, when you get injured, it messes up that habit. And let's say you have to take 6 weeks off. When you come back, not only did you not get better in those 6 weeks, but even worse, you now have to build up your consistency before you really can focus on getting better again. If you've been injured for 6 months, it's not like you ever come back and you're like, I need to be working my knee cut now. You come back and you're like, I hope I remember jiu-jitsu at all. And you have to get that consistency. You take 6 weeks to even get back in shape to get to where you're learning well again. And so taking one extra day to not train hard over the years will be so worth it, because it keeps you from those 6 weeks and 6 month and year-long injuries, or the injuries that start as 6 week injuries and they last forever because you just never can come back. And so the way that we can kind of start to avoid that is back to the first point. The more that we recognize that in ourselves, the more we recognize our own, like, oh, this is something I'm bad at. I should get better at that. This is causing me to be injured. This is causing me to not have good relationships. This is causing me to do whatever. And how you get good at anything, in my opinion, and I stole this from a seminar that Huron Gracie taught, and I just loved this because it really, I think that this mindset helped me get good at so many other things. He was teaching guillotines, and somebody had said, like, yeah, but I just can't get guillotines to work. I'm terrible at guillotines. I know I should be going for them. I'm just terrible. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, does anybody else feel like that? And everyone, including myself, raised their hand. Like, guillotines are so hard to learn to finish. And he says, I think the first step to getting good at anything is missing it. And he said, so when we're in side control on top and the guy starts wrestling up, he said, the first step to me getting good at the guillotine is learning it and then going, oh, there was a guillotine. I should have went for it. And you didn't even go for it. And he's like, that's the first step, because you do that a few times and then you go for it. And he's like, and then you miss it. And you go for it again, you miss it. You go for it again, you go for it a while, and then you hit it. And now it's like you still miss it, and you hit it once, though. And that's the next step to getting good. Eventually, you hit it 10 times. Eventually, you hit it 1,000. Eventually, every time somebody wrestles up on you, you hit that guillotine. And for me, that's like, as a brown belt, I learned that guillotine and never had finished a guillotine in a competition before, never really finished guillotines in general before, unless they're just cranking on somebody's face or neck. And he gave that example. And eventually now, like, I finished guillotines in competition against good black belts. And that is because I missed it. And I missed it a bunch. And then I kind of got it, right? And so we can do that with habits. I tell you guys, like, I'm catching myself making this mistake. There are mistakes that I caught myself for years doing, and then all of a sudden, like, I stopped doing them. And it is because if you were identifying it, crap, don't do that. I need to fix that. Crap, you did it already. Go apologize to your wife for being a jerk, right? You caught yourself doing it, and then next time, try to not do it. Next time, catch yourself earlier, right? If you don't, keep trying. Hopefully your wife is forgiving, right? And jiu-jitsu is the same way. You injure yourself. Crap. I was looking back, that was too much training. I've told you guys, I had a rock bottom point for me where I finally accepted, like, all right, I know I'm 27 at this time. I'm 30 now. But I was 27 at that time. And like, there's no way I should have to adjust my training this much. I am not old. But the truth was, I had 13 years of jiu-jitsu, hard training, competition, a lot of wrestling, a lot of open class type training. on my body. And then also you think about 5 or 6 years of training from 14 to 20. 14 to 20-year-olds are the most ignorant people in the universe when it comes to protecting their body. And so I trained like a 14 to 20-year-old all day as hard as I could, live rounds for most everything. And now I have to adjust. If we wanted to like do a fun experiment, we could do a YouTube video where I train like a quote unquote normal jiu-jitsu athlete for like 6 weeks. And the injuries that I have would be like, all right, he can't compete ever again, but that, one, it's because most of the normal jiu-jitsu athletes are on steroids, but two, that is just because of the amount of training that there has been. And I care about doing jiu-jitsu after competition. I care about, my dad's 63 and he still does jiu-jitsu. I care about being 63 and being able to do jiu-jitsu with my son. And I care about, being able to do jiu-jitsu with my dad when I'm 63 and he's 96 and he's still beating me down. I plan on being able to grapple still. And so, to do that though, it's in my habits now. It is in the things that I do now. And again, those mistakes that I make daily are going to add up over time. And so just catching yourself make those mistakes. It's so easy to catch those weekly mistakes, those monthly mistakes. But the things that you do every day that you don't even notice, if you can identify those, it will make a massive difference for you, and hopefully will keep you healthy and keep you on the mats. So now we are going to go ahead and we are going to take a quick commercial break. Hey guys, Josh McKinney here. We are back. If you guys have been watching online, you can tell I switched up the commercials a little bit. This all is recorded now as just one great episode instead of a bunch of segments that we clipped together. But I already kind of mentioned to you guys what today's commercial is going to be about, and I cannot stress enough how much I have put into this new premium podcast. This new premium podcast that we have is called MAPS, Master Any Position in 6 Weeks. And what it is this... It's this perspective of kind of like 6 things that you can do repetitively over and over and over to create this endless loop of progression in your jiu-jitsu. And we have it broken down to 6 weeks, but for the guard passing pressure that I have been working over the last year, I have spent a year on it. Using this method, and I'll kind of use it in different forms. I'll kind of repeat the method so I can kind of get deeper dives. You would understand all that if you check out Master Any Position in 6 Weeks. Master Any Position in 6 Weeks is exclusive to the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro, and the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro is at simplifyingjujitsu.com. All that information is in a link in the description. You'll just be able to click it. You'll be able to go to I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro, and Master Any Position in 6 Weeks drops in just 2 days. This will be on June 15th, and it is definitely the most unique course I've ever put out. I don't think there's anything that is exactly like this, and I am so excited for you guys to check it out and hopefully to benefit from it. And just also to release the first ever I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Premium podcast. To me, that is really significant because when I think back to when I made this course of Master Any Position in 6 Weeks, I was a brown belt, and I really, I think I had a good idea, and I was just too afraid to share it. And that was like, it's kind of become this full circle thing for me to probably 7 or 8 years later after creating this method. I actually wrote this method down on a piece of paper while we were on a plane coming home from vacation. And I was just like, I need to explain what has been working so well in my gym, because it wasn't class structure. It was like me sitting down with my individual guys, and this is what the situation was. I was getting guys that were just generally good at jiu-jitsu, but they weren't great. And they were definitely not blue belt level. And I would think like the best way for you guys to get blue belt level would be to get blue belt level in one thing. You're not blue belt level in anything. And so what I would make people do is I would make them choose a move, and for 6 weeks, they had to focus on that move. And so if you guys have listened to the show for any amount of time, you know this method as the end goal method. You learn a submission and you focus on it for 6 weeks, right? And then you'll create all kinds of avenues. You'll see all kinds of new ways to get to that submission, and you will get a lot of practice with finishing that submission. And that itself was working great. But then we started to tweak it a little more and make it even more specific and say, well, in these weeks, this is how you focus on it. And in these weeks, this is how you study it. And then on these weeks, this is how you get reps from it. And when we started doing that, it went from like 2 years to get to blue belt to like a year and a half. And then from there, it went to like a year for a lot of guys. And so like a lot of guys training consistently were getting their blue belts under me, who is a very mean grader. And there are guys that people will come up to me and be like, you should be promoting this guy, and you don't. I'll be like, that's because I hate him and I hate everybody. But that's neither here nor there. But these guys are getting so much better. And this was been in my gym for years now, but it was with this idea of master any position in 6 weeks. And so I really think this idea is going to help a lot of you guys and make you just so much better at getting better at jiu-jitsu and getting better at jiu-jitsu on your own. And again, it is going to be a nice repetitive thing that will help you get better and definitely help you build a schedule to not kill your body and all that other crap that we talk about. And so we'll look at and that's kind of where I was finishing this whole thought. I made this course 8 years ago as a brown belt, and I really didn't. Obviously, I made a video / podcast version of it, and it wasn't just written down, but I didn't even tweak it a whole lot, because the content was so good. But the truth was, I didn't share it. And I've shared however many instructionals. There are 12 instructionals, 13 instructionals, or something like that on iSuck Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro. And I didn't share this yet. And I haven't shared it for years. And I think that is because this is the third point. You are probably your worst and least constructive critic. And I noticed that in myself. I noticed that in most people that I talk to and most of my students, that there are the people that are just totally oblivious to any of their own flaws. And so, we talked about those people already. But most of the time, our struggle is actually the way that we look at our flaws and the way that we treat ourselves because of our flaws. So often you will have weaknesses in your life that are just because of who you are, that are just part of your physicality or part of whatever. But you'll have these weaknesses in your life and you let them define you. And you say to yourself, like, you are dumb. Remember in 5th grade when you lost the spelling bee, you'll never be smart. And you live with that in your head. Now you're 45 and spell check exists. So spelling doesn't matter at all in any way. No one cares. And you still live that though in your head, and you still let that keep you from doing certain things in your life. And I know that that's a really weird specific example. I lost a spelling bee once in 3rd grade to the word mirror. I didn't know there were so many R's in it. I didn't know, man. And I still can't spell to this day, but I have forgiven myself for that loss. And I take solace in the fact that I would to this day submit every other kid that was in that spelling bee 1,000 times over and not break a sweat. And so, yeah, that helps me sleep at night. But anyway, so often we are super negative with ourselves, and it even plays into that diminishing return. We will do those things like that toughness and that cardio will be like, no, don't take a day off. You're being weak. And that's just negative self-talk because it's not true. Sometimes you do need a day off. And it's so hard though, because we're so used to just always treating ourselves badly, always talking to ourselves badly. And so I have a simple hack if you struggle with a lot of negative self-talk. And this was somebody who was not a doctorate in psychology. So this could be bad advice, but this was really helpful to me, and I'll share it with you guys. And it was basically along the lines of, if you struggle with negative self-talk, meaning you're always saying like, yeah, I'm so stupid, I'm so this, I'm so that. It was like, I think this guy he didn't sugarcoat things. He said it is the same thing as if you struggle with being really arrogant. And his example was this. So many people think it's going like, oh, well, if you show a negative self-talk, you should counter it with positive self-talk. No, you're great. You're amazing. You are so awesome. And you do your daily affirmations. And look, I'm not going to trash daily affirmations. If you do daily affirmations and they are helpful to you, keep doing them. But this was the example that was given to me. And he said, so those people are just taking one form of self-obsession and replacing it with a different form of self-obsession. And he said, my recommendation when somebody struggles with negative self-talk is to focus on helping other people. It is not to focus on yourself. He said, because if you can try to make it positive, but you are still going to be obsessed with yourself. And that is what the true problem is your own self-obsession. You are constantly in your own head thinking, well, people are going to think this about me. People are going to think this about me. And if you just stopped thinking about that stuff, if you stopped letting that be your priority, that be your main focus, imagine what positive things you could focus on to benefit you. And so something we talk about on the podcast all the time is focus on things that you can control. Like every time you look in the mirror, you're like, man, I'm so ugly. And then like, is you telling yourself that you're beautiful in the mirror going to change that? No, bro, you're ugly. Even you know it. Don't worry about that. Go try to learn to be funny, right? And so when you are able to separate the obsession that is in your mind and say, no, I'm not trash if I skip training tonight. I need to skip training. I need to spend time with my family, right? And that would be focusing on something you can control, and that would be helping other people, right? I need to, my significant other has been taking care of the kids. Maybe they need to go to Jiu-Jitsu and beat somebody up, And so just that shift in focus for me was life-changing. Just that shift from going like, oh, it's not positive or negative that is keeping me from, even in jiu-jitsu competition, this helped. Because I would always I tell you guys, I always try this positive self-talk. I was always trying to like, oh, my mind is getting negative. Now I tell you guys, I don't like talk back to those thoughts. Those thoughts are not true. When I'm jogging and I'm like, oh, you're too tired, you don't have good cardio, it's like, who cares? We'll see. Push that out of your head. Keep jogging, And that is so often just not accepting those things. You still have those thoughts. I have those thoughts all the time, I listen to an I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. I have negative thoughts a lot of the time when I listen to it. And so sometimes that makes me just go, I'm probably not in the right headspace to listen to this right now. Maybe I'll just switch to something else. I'm being too self-focused right now. And so just that little bit of switch to go, no, this isn't what I should focus on, I really think will make a massive change in your life. And so just kind of tying everything together for the day, when we are thinking about how we are the people that are stopping us from being successful in the jiu-jitsu space, there has to be something that stuck out to you. If not, if you're like, no, every single problem that I heard him talk about doesn't apply to me, but I still have all kinds of problems in my jiu-jitsu, they are not mine. Either you're not self-aware, or maybe you are in a cult and you are having a ton of problems in the jiu-jitsu space because you're just not in the right place. You're not in the right environment. And so kind of tying these things together, like, though I gave you some self-help steps, self-help hardly ever works, right? One of the best things you can do is get consistency by being around the right people, people that have the strength that you have and they have sharpened it even better. Those people are awesome to be around. People that have a strength where you have a weakness, those people are awesome to be around if they have the right attitude, if they have the right perspective, and you enjoy being around them. And so sometimes to change your mindset and to change everything else, you do have to change your environment. But most of the time, I would say that isn't the case. Most of the time, you are your own problem, and you will take your environment that you hated in one gym, and then you go to the new gym, and then you're like, well, they do this, and maybe it's a little bit different why you hate that gym, but you also hate that gym. And a lot of times you are the problem. And if you can identify like, oh man, I shouldn't be bad mouthing people behind their back because it causes all kinds of drama in the gym. And people, for whatever reason, then people don't like me, or I shouldn't be messaging people's wives at the gym. I don't know what you do, bro, but I know for a fact that if you're having problems, it's most likely you. It could be me. It could be the fact that you listen to me, but still, that's your fault. That's your responsibility. Focus on what you can control, man. And so, that is, I think, all I have for you guys today. I was worried about this episode not being able to go a full hour. It didn't. That's heartbreaking. But I will just finish with a little note. So if you guys were interested at all in mastering a position in 6 weeks, I just hit my microphone, sorry. Mastering position in 6 weeks. On next Monday on our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is just Josh McKinney. If you search it, we are going to be giving away the first episode of that podcast. And it's kind of the overview, and it's going to give you way too much information for completely free. But we dig so deep in the podcast, I know it's still going to be worth it. We're not giving everything away for free, just like 95% of things. And that is going to be on the YouTube channel. And so if you are not subscribed, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel to be able to be notified of that. And then, of course, if you are not subscribed for the Gi Gazette, there's going to be a place to do that. We are actually going to start to increase the articles of the Gi Gazette, maybe with some different things that I think you'll find helpful, that I think you guys will find really fun. And so I'm very excited about that happening soon. That is totally free if you want to sign up for the Gi Gazette. And then, of course, the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show Pro if you really want to dig deeper and you really want to just truly suck less at jiu-jitsu. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. And if you guys have any episode ideas, let me know. Send me a message. People have been liking these whatever type of episodes we've been doing lately. I don't even know what you would call them. But they've been liking the show lately. And so if you do, give us a share, give us a comment, try to spread the word. The biggest comment that breaks my heart that I see quite a bit is, why isn't this show bigger? Why don't more people listen to this? And it's like, hey, bro, you commenting, it's your fault. I'm doing everything I can here. I'm focused on what I can control, but my boys aren't sharing the episodes. What am I supposed to do about that? But that being said, last complaint that I have, I probably could focus on what I could control better, be a better podcast marketer. But that's neither here nor there either. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope this episode is helpful for you. Hope you identified your worst enemy and you're going to punch him in the face later. And I hope that today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.